Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, Sherry.
Hello.
I know we still are 3 minutes early, but just so you know, the link is streaming and has been pasted in board docs. So whenever folks join at 5, you're free to begin.
All right, thank you, Ms. Santiago. Just welcoming everybody who is tuning in. We'll wait for just a couple more minutes and then begin this meeting of the Hartford Board of Education, Family and Community Engagement Committee. Ms. Santiago, do you know if we're waiting on any other board members?
As far as I know, no one has declined. Let me start texting. I know it's 5 o'clock on the dot. I will text a few, but feel free to begin.
All right, I'll just wait one more minute, see if we get a couple people. All right, we may as well get started. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Hartford Board of Education's Family and Community Engagement Committee. My name is Stephen Tatum. I am a board member and chair of this committee. It is Thursday, February 6th, 2025. I hope that everyone had a safe and warm day through the weather that we had earlier. Seems to have cooled down now, so things should be smoother from here for the next couple of days at least. If we could go around and just introduce the board members and then we'll go through some updates. Ms. Hockenhall, I see you here.
Everybody, good to see you, Jen Hockenhall.
Great. And then we're joined by a variety of district staff and partners who will introduce along as we go. So we'll start with Ms. Janelle Hooker, who I believe is going to lead us through a few updates.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janelle Hooker, and I am the Acting Executive Director for the Office of Strategic Partnerships and Fund Development for Hartford Public Schools. Ms. Santiago, thank you. You could go to slide number 2. So to ground us as part of the work that has been happening in the district for this school year, we are raising or elevating two strategies for student success, which are focused in equitable access to high quality learning experiences and student connectedness to school. So the information that you will hear today is grounded in those 2 buckets of work, which are supported by enabling systemic practices, which are structure and culture of adult learning, project and performance management, whole community engagement, which you will hear a little bit about that, and a diverse workforce committed to equitable access and outcomes, which would all land in a vision and plan for future resident readiness and financial resilience. Next slide, please. In line with our strategies for this year, we launched Hartford Strategic Planning process in September to guide the district into the next decade and ensure that every student graduates prepared to thrive in our rapidly changing world. This process will culminate in a 10-year vision statement and a 3-year strategic plan. Grounded in equity, innovative thinking, and a meaningful community engagement, we are committed to co-creating a roadmap for future of Hartford Public Schools. The Phase 2 survey will be live next week, and additional information is available on our website. Next slide, please. The All Voices Our Future strategic process has been one marked by deep engagement with a range of community members. The breadth and depth of the strategic planning process was instrumental in shaping strategic priorities that reflect the hopes and dreams of Hartford community and are also grounded in effective practices from both HPS unique contexts and successful models from across the country. To recap, in Phase 0, we launched a district-wide campaign communicating news of the process and how to get involved, posting on social media and on the official HPS website, and sharing the news via press release. We also hosted a board retreat with you all to discuss the process and what would make it successfully. We heard it was really important to you that the process be transparent and inclusive, engaging members throughout the community with balanced participation from staff at central office and working in schools. In addition to input from the community, we also looked to research and other sites across the country for effective practices. In Phase 1, we conducted and analyzed over 2,900 survey responses, conducted focus groups and one-on-one interviews, analyzing all responses for shared ideas and priorities across the different groups. We hosted and attended community events. We spoke with a wide range of community members, group of high school students, leaders during their weekly morning meetings, family during parent-teacher night, union leaders at their regular meeting, community and faith-based leaders on one-on-one interviews, and district staff. In Phase 1, we asked folks to share their biggest hopes and dreams for Hartford, their perceptions of the most pressing challenge and most urgent needs and ideas for the future. It gave us the opportunity to hear each person describe in their own words how they would like to see the district improve in the years to come. In Phase 2, we sharpened the focus, reviewing common ideas and surveys, transcripts, and notes from our conversations. We mapped the most common ideas across groups. Then, drawing on research, we generated a set draft of priorities and asked community members to provide feedback on the importance and ideas for taking action of each priority. We continue to solicit feedback via survey. So far, we have 324 Phase 2 surveys completed, as well as through focus groups and interviews. On February 18, the Board of Education will vote their approval on the 2025-2028 strategic plan, an important step forward in shaping the future of our district. Next slide, please. These priorities were These priorities were developed by analyzing the key ideas of topics that came upon repeatedly across conversations and feedback over the 2 phases, creating high-level buckets to capture the central idea voiced by our community and bringing in ideas from research and other systems across the country. The first strategic priority is whole and healthy students, about nurturing the whole student, their academic, personal, mental, social, and physical selves, not only in school, but also outside of schools. You can think of the first strategic priority as the cornerstone in the arc or the center of the wheel. All others are in service of and connected to this one. Strategic objectives focus on students' mental health, high quality instruction, a strong pathway for all students from early childhood to college and career. Targeted focus on our students with the most needs, including students with disability and multilingual learners, as well as opportunities to pivot innovation. The second priority, expansive learning and opportunity, relates to engaging in genuine partnerships with the Hartford community, provide students with real world and enriching experiences, and generate more trusting and collaborative relationships. Strategic objectives include open, transparent, and accessible communication, fostering trust and collaboration, and offering engaging real world experiences and enrichment for all students. The third priority, skilled and diverse teams, focus on keeping talented people in Hartford to the benefit of our students, whether throughout strengthening recruitment pipelines, increased compensation, or greater differentiation in professional learning and support. Strategic objectives relate to honoring the varying experiences and interests of educators by providing differentiated professional learning, increasing compensation to attract and retain teachers, and improving the hiring process. And finally, the fourth theme, operational efficiency, relates to using available resources in the most effective way to provide high quality services to our students. Strategic objectives for this theme include managing resources more equitable and strategically, engaging in legislative advocacy for policy changes and increased funding, improving management at all levels of our system, and delivering on the commitments in the strategic plan. Next slide, please. So those slides, those slides that we just shared were an update on our strategic planning as a district. We would also like to share as part of our presentation, or the initial part of today's meeting, our February to-do, which today we did have a social emotional competency presentation at Parker Memorial on February 11. You can expect that we will be hosting our HBS Parent and Caregiver Panel Budget presentation. This will be virtual. On February 20th, there will be a family learning sessions where we will be focusing on motivational workshop for displaced families at Capital Community College. And we will have a virtual session for our SGC members to have a budget presentation. February 22nd, we will be hosting an education expo as a district, which will be at our SMSA campus from 9 to 2. And on February 25th, we will have a budget review session, which will be open to the community, that we're still finalizing a location for that particular session. Board Member Tatum, I will hand over our updates to you.
Thank you very much for sharing all that information, Ms. Hooker. The last update is that I would just like to highlight a memo that was sent by Superintendent Torres Rodriguez on January 24th regarding protocol for dealing with agents from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This memo was sent out to share guiding principles and action steps for how school-based staff should respond if a ICE officer were to come to a school and be seeking entry to a school. The main principle is that it's well established that a student's immigration status does not have any or should not affect their right to attend school and receive an education. Education and eligibility for education is purely based on residency, not on immigration status. And as far as action steps, there are several details listed in the memo that I encourage the community to read. Basically, the steps ensure that if Immigration Customs Enforcement shows up to a school, there's a process for referral to superintendent and the district's legal team to review the requests and ensure that before any access is granted to students or student information, that the proper legal steps are followed, including review of any warrants that the agents may or may not have, and really ensuring that we're doing the most that we can to protect students while still complying with legal requirements. So again, that memo was sent out to the Hartford community on January 24th. And I would encourage anyone who is interested in this issue to review that memo. It also includes resources, know your rights information, and legal services that are available. Unless anyone has questions about that or any of the updates that Ms. Hooker shared, we can move on to the next part of the agenda. I'll just pause for a second to see if anyone has questions. Okay, Ms. Santiago, if you could pull up the agenda or dive us right in. Yeah, here we go, the agenda. So next are items that will be coming up for review at the next regular meeting in February. We've got in order the Wish School construction update, extended school grant contracts, a contract with the University of Hartford as a third-party evaluator of some of our programs, and then a first review of the 2025-2026, and 26-27, interesting, district calendar. So first, who should I pass it over to discuss the Wish School construction?
That would be Chief Davis Googe.
All right, over to you, Chief Davis Googe.
Hi, Executive on Special Assignment Davis Googe. How's everybody tonight? So we're here tonight to talk about the Wish construction project. Last time we came before you, we were sharing the schematic design. Tonight, we're excited to share that we are now ready to take the project to the next level, to the first steps of actual construction planning. Here with me tonight is Mr. Pellman, who serves as our project manager on the project, as well as the architectural team, JCJ, to talk us through just the refinement of the design. There were very few changes since we last spoke, and the next steps in the approval process. So Scott, please feel free to introduce your team and the JCJ team.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Scott Pellman from Colliers Project Leaders. With me this evening, I have Judy Denny. I think she's going to actually spearhead the presentation. And from the architect JCJ, I see that we have Lisa St. Amand and Fawn Pellegrini. With that, I'll turn it over to Judy.
Good evening, everyone. So I wasn't sure whether we had the presentation available.
I can share it.
Sounds good. All right, so you can go to the next slide. So as a part of the presentation, as Ms. Sherry Googe had mentioned, is that we're currently at the construction documents process. Before that, we met with you guys for the schematic design, We also met with you guys for design development, which is some more refinement of the project, and now we're at the construction documents. So as a part of the process for approval through the state, we have to make sure that we meet with the advisory committee as well as the Board of Education and the Hartford School Building Committee. So we already met with the advisory committee on Tuesday of this week. And then we're here today to review with you the process of the construction documents. And the reason why we do this is in order for us to get approval through the state, we have to make sure that we review the final drawings and specifications with you all. And then we'll be able to meet with the Office of Grants and Administration. And then after that, we'll be able to go out to bid. And then as a part of that process, there's a motion that we will give that will be for the February 18th meeting. And it's just pretty much to let everybody know that the committee has reviewed the documents and as well as the presentation, and that it is approved to be able to go through the Office of Grants and Administration. Next slide. And as a part of that process, we have to fill out the form SCG 042. And then we already met with the building inspector, the fire marshal, the health inspector as well. And this document is pretty much to sign off on the documents and specifications. Usually we have the Board of Education, we have the superintendent, the Hartford School Building Committee, as well as the architect will sign off on this document. And behind this on the second page are the authorities having jurisdiction usually sign off on those documents. Next, I will hand it over to Fawn, who will go into more details as it relates to the project.
Thanks, Judy. So Fawn Pellegrini from JCJ Architecture. As Judy mentioned, in the past, we shared the design drawing images. And as we worked through various design approvals, we then proceeded into what's called the construction document or documentation phase. And during this phase is when we document the approved design in a manner that is appropriate for a contractor to price during the bidding phase, and then build during the construction phase. Those documents are called construction documents, and they consist of two primary items. One is the specification manual, and we just have a sampling of this on the slide currently. You can see that the table of contents is it's quite a hefty book. It contains all of the products that are in your school and outlines the quality that needs to be provided. And next slide. And then the second primary document is what's called the drawing set. And this has all of the images and construction details that are needed. It provides the dimensions and quantities and things like that. So this is just, again, a sampling of the cover sheet and the table of contents. And that's it. I guess I'll pass this on to Lisa. Thank you. So this is just a reminder of the existing site plan of the Fred D. Wish Museum School. Sorry. And this is what we've proposed for the new Fred D. Wish School. So this should look pretty familiar to what we presented last time. There have been a few modifications that we've incorporated in after hearing feedback and trying to look for the best efficiency on the site and to create less congestion. One of those things was adding both an inlet and egress out. Previously, we had only had an inlet in. So now there's an egress out. So we have two egresses out onto Kensington Street. The other thing that was added was the path here. And there was always a gate, but there was not a path. So the path is there now for ease of access to the gate. The other thing that we've been working on developing is the playscape, which you'll see a little bit more information on later on in the presentation. But aside from that, everything in here is
pretty much what we've had presented before with those few exceptions. And this is the overall plan of the first floor. Again, we have the admin space here, more of the shared spaces here where you have the gymnasium, the cafeteria, classrooms like music and art. And then this wing here is the what we would kind of refer to as the academic wing, where all the classrooms are and the resource rooms as well. The second floor is just that academic wing stacked. There's no second floor over the gymnasium or the admin wing, just the second floor here. And that was all the same in the after the DD presentation or during the DD presentation. And here are the elevations of this proposed school, and these remain unchanged as well. And this slide here is showing access to the back of the school where the playscape is and the greenscape is, also hardscape for play and the garden. And then this is showing the playscape, what's been proposed for the equipment. And you can see in these photos images of what's being proposed. It's all age appropriate and it's also inclusive. And then we did that for each of the play areas. The play areas, the first one was for the older kids. This one is for first to second graders. And this one is for the pre-KK children. These are the proposed materials, which we had previously shown as well. And then the renderings of what the school will look like once it's complete. The area that's really developed and that's new to see are the materials that are going into the building, the colors and all the different flooring, paint colors, materials. And here you get to see what it's like when you enter into the school. After you pass through that vestibule, you enter into what you'll see the learning commons, the art room here, the corridor down to the gymnasium and cafeteria. And this is a view of one of the maker spaces in the school. You get to see that there's writable surface, there's digital learning, so a lot of different things going on in this classroom. And this is a view of what the cafeteria is going to look like. And a view of what the gymatorium is going to look like. You can see here is the platform. This is a view of what we refer to one of the learning neighborhoods. So it's the corridor in the classrooms. The corridor's wider so that there can be gathering in the corridor space for both the Model of Excellence program that the museum, that the Wish Museum School has, and then also for extended learning into the corridor from the classroom. What I want to point out here is that in this slide we have a pinup board located here. And then in this slide, we are showing it as clerestory, so glazing that will allow for borrowed light, shared light. We're showing the two options because one is it's an alternate right now. So if it can be afforded to have the clerestory, that's what we're proposing. But if the budget doesn't allow for it, we would have the pinup board option. And this is what a typical classroom will look like. And again, you can see here where's the pinup board is located. And then if we can afford it, the clerestory lighting here. And that's our presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you very much to that team. Are there any questions about this phase of the project? All right. Seeing none, thank you very much for presenting the information, and we will be reviewing it at the February meeting.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up on the agenda is the extended school grants contract. Feel free to step in, whoever is presenting on that.
Thank you, Board Member Tatum. So at this time, we will be talking about our extended school hours contract for school year 24-25, which funds are available to us via the Connecticut Department of Education, and it's specific to Alliance and Priority School Districts to be able to provide extended school hours services. Next slide. This year's funding allocation for the particular contract that we're reviewing is a total of $307,000, where according to state regulation, the process of selecting schools to offer extended school day programs must be a competitive process within each Alliance Priority School District. We are soliciting proposals from qualified nonprofit organizations to provide extended day programs in Hartford priority schools for extended school day programs, and it will be selected based upon criteria approved by the Commissioner of Education. Next slide, please. Our proposals, or the request for proposal that is submitted, will implement a balanced approach of after-school programming, combining academic support, social, cultural, and recreational enrichment programming. And we will be looking at metrics to evaluate and ensure that these services are meeting 80% of students enrolled to demonstrate literacy and numeracy improvement. We are going to be expecting that our students that are enrolled in those programs, 100% of the students enrolled in those programs are meeting a 75% or above attendance in school. And for support around parental involvement, we're looking for 60% of the students that are participating in programs' parents be attended or fully engaged in PTO events, SGC, school activities, parent-teacher conferences, etc. Next slide, please. These funds will allow us to ensure that a vast majority of our schools do have the opportunity to provide extended day programs. We currently have 80% of our schools offering such opportunities to students. With the request for proposal process this year, we did have a total of 8 respondents in the competitive process, and you're able to see the list of organizations that responded to the process and the schools that they're looking to offer the services to. Next slide, please. This evening, we're looking to bring to our committee 2 organizations for review and approval who are looking to provide extended school hours, services, and programming, each organization to a total of 3 schools. We're bringing to committee today Catholic Charities, who will provide its Chill Spot program, which has an emphasis on literacy development and student attendance. And the schools that they're looking to offer services would be McDonough Middle School, Milner Middle School, and Parkville Elementary School. And you're able to see on screen the metrics that we will be evaluating are looking to ensure that services are meeting at those particular schools by that organization. The second community-based organization that we're bringing to committee today is the Village for Families and Children, who will provide students across 3 schools academic enrichment in math and ELA, experiential learning, as well as focus on that parental engagement activities. And the 3 schools that they're looking to offer the services will be Burr Middle School, Sand Elementary School, and Roslyn. You're also able to see the metrics that we will be using to ensure that that particular organization at those schools is meeting expectations that are in the proposal. Next slide. Strategies that our office will be using to ensure that such metrics are being in line with the proposals will be a variety of site visits. We also will have satisfaction surveys being conducted to both parents and students. And we will ensure that these services and activities are in line with our PSEA goals for our school, which is our plan for school excellence and accountability. We will be looking to our students to be maintaining a 75% attendance rate, not only in the after-school enrichment programs, but also their attending during the school day. And we will be utilizing a data system, which is called Transact, has a Canyon data platform, which is the one that would allow us to look at the individuals that the organizations are offering service to, and really help us to pinpoint in Power School how those particular students are doing when it comes to attendance to school, as well as their grades and behavior. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation in extended school hours, and I do have representatives from each one of the organizations. Should you have any clarifying questions for us this evening?
Thank you, Ms. Hooker, and thank you to the people joining us from Catholic Charities and from the Village. We appreciate you being here. Does anybody have any questions related to these programs? Yes, I see you, Ms. Hockenhall.
Thanks, Mr. Tatum. Thank you, Ms. Hooker, for your presentation. I just have two quick questions. I was just wondering, and sorry if I just missed this, but how many students participate in these programs across the schools? And does every student who needs a seat or needs an after-school program have access to it? Like, is there enough space for all the students who need it?
That is a great question, and I'll start the question, and I would also allow the individuals from the organization to see if any of them want to join with me. So the programs will, based on the funding that is being allotted, which is not necessarily a high funding for that particular program, those organizations will be looking to enhance some of the services that are currently happening in the school. And we are looking for it to have approximately between 50 to 75 individuals to be able to participate in the after-school enrichment programs. And that is definitely not all of the students within the school. The students do get selected in collaboration with school principals to ensure that individuals that can maximize from these opportunities and help them throughout the school day is something that we're utilizing as a strategy. And I'm not sure if Aldwin or Nick would want to add to my answer.
So hello, Ms. Hockenhall. We meet again. Good to see you again. Glad to see we got a familiar face on the board. So basically, no, because of funding, we are maxed out at 75. We do have a wait list, and we do preference for siblings. So families with siblings that have multiple children, like are on the wait list. So it is maxed out at 75 because we want to maintain a 15-to-1 kind of structured ratio. But in terms of all of our collective services, at Catholic Charities, we provide a Core 4 service, which provides intensive case management for scholars, as well as parents, and we provide clinical services. And inevitably, within all of those services, we serve the majority of the school, if not everyone. But with this funding with ESH, it's just for the after school, so that is 75.
And I would just also like to add, Aldwin Allen Village for Family and Children. As we looked at the extended day funding, the funding typically allows us to do creative things that principals look and want to have done in their schools. So typically, as we're looking at the extended day, extended school hours grant, it allows us an opportunity to employ teachers in creative short-term activities, because as you look at sort of the year-round community school, we're looking at dosage. So we're looking at students being a participant for the majority of the school year. We're measuring that, 5 days a week. We're doing those pieces. As the extended school hours grant comes out, it allows us to, in collaboration with the principals, have some conversations about, hey, what are the things that the teachers really want to do? When the teachers are sort of anchored and they sort of have their creative juices flowing, because unfortunately, as we look at starting it earlier during the year, teachers don't necessarily have a chance to anchor in and then say, hey, I want to do something creative. But as December rolls around, a lot of ideas percolated, we have conversations, we write it strategically, and then we're able to sort of do these things. So as you're looking at your typical after extended day program student, this one allows you to get some of those students, but it also allows you to get additional students who sort of have specific interests and may not be available to the full week process, and also allows you to do creative things with parents. So we would love for us to get to the space where we're serving entire schools, because that is the goal. That is the absolute goal. And there are some principals who would not let us forget that we are not at the full school yet, right? But as long as funding allows, we get to do little creative pieces that give us a taste, a little sample of what we can do. And hopefully in time, we're able to sort of align the resources to do more.
That's great. And if I can ask a follow-up, Mr. Tatum, real quick. So when we're talking about extended day, so is this kind of like after school care, like to 5 o'clock, or is this like, I apologize if I should know the answer to this question, but just trying to
No,
better
that is-
understand
No,
what
no, it's
extended
fine.
That
day
is the-
means. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Give me 1 second, Nick. That is an excellent question, because from the 8 respondents that you saw on my presentation, we do have a variety of hours or services that are being offered. We have some of them that are doing the before care services, so that assisting during the early morning, parents are able to drop off their kiddos and they're in programming and services, and it allows them to transition into the school day. And then we have organizations that their proposals is around the after school. So when kiddos get out after the last session of school, they have dinner and they're able to transition with organizations like Catholic Charities and the Village, and their services are there until 6 in the afternoon. Sorry, Nick.
No, thank you. And I apologize. So we provide services till 6 o'clock because most folks get out between the hours of 4 and 5:30, and so we believe it's of utmost importance to allow families to kind of drive safely and get to our programming, so that way they can have a whole work day. So we are very proud and to provide services till 6 p.m.
And there are 5 days a week, just in case I didn't say that.
I have one quick question about the attendance targets. I think I understood from the presentation that the attendance target for these programs is 75%. But go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
I'm wondering, because you also mentioned that there's like some maybe targets about school attendance as well, but a 75% target for school attendance seems quite low to me. Like, is there a different number for what we're hoping students who participate in these programs have for school attendance, or is that also the same kind of target?
So what we're looking is to utilize these additional or these enrichment programs to help it be an engagement strategy for students to be able to be in school and transition into their extended day learning. So with us looking at a starting point of 75% and extended, because you need to be in school to be able to go to extended, or you're starting in extended and transitioning into school. In us trying to have at least that starting point of 75% in the extended, we're hoping that it would help us hit a higher ADA program, and the organizations that are partnering with us as part of the RFP process, the language around that is embedded, and their activities are in line with making sure that they're working directly with schools to increase or ensure that that ADA for schools is in line with what schools are looking for. And that's a part of our evaluation. So when we do site visits, those are things that we're asking principals and questioning and making sure that that is actually happening.
Ms. Janelle, would you like me to
Board Member Tatum, is that okay?
Yep. Yeah, please.
Go ahead.
No,
Matt.
well, the other thing, Board Member Tatum, I think is to, oftentimes these families have the kids involved in other programming too, all right? And that's a blessing. And so oftentimes they're in extracurricular things like cheerleading, some other STEM activities, robotics. So we would never preclude them from our programming to stop them from going to soccer or football. And so the 75% is representative of a really high watermark. So just as an FYI across the state.
That's helpful context. Thank you. And yeah, hearing that you're collaborating with the principals on their average daily attendance goals, like that makes a lot of sense. Are there any other questions for either Mr. Allen or Mr. LeBron? All right, then. We appreciate both of your time for joining us. Thank you so much, and for everything that you and your organizations are doing for the students of Hartford. Really appreciate your work. Thank you. Okay, next up for discussion is a contract with the University of Hartford to be a third-party evaluator. This is back over to you, correct, Miss Hooker?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So at this point, or for this particular contract, we will be talking about our full service community schools grant, which is a federal 5-year grant that the district received, and we brought to committee for acceptance of the fund back last school year. A requirement, Ms. Santiago, if you can go to the next slide for me, please. Thank you so much. A requirement of the grant to ensure that here at the district, we are following suit with the proposal that was submitted to the federal government requires for us to have a third-party evaluator that will be alongside with us throughout the duration of the grant. I mentioned that the grant is a 5-year grant, and it's going to go all the way to December of 2028. Our third-party evaluator that we are looking to extend their contract to is the Center for Social Research with the University of Hartford. This is an organization that is also a evaluator for the North Hartford Ascend Pipeline, which is another federal grant that we have with schools in the north end of our city. This particular grant is on the south end of our city, and it allows us to be able to look at comparison data point and implementation of the grants and successful growth or measurements of the students that are participating in these schools. Data tracking indicators that our third-party evaluator would be looking at is the provision of the services, student chronic absenteeism, our discipline rate, graduation rate, staff characteristics of things that are being supported at the school. They will be looking to support us throughout the grant period, conducting needs assessments, or working with our school administrators to put together a protocol and process around needs assessments, working on asset mapping. They would also be a part of site visits and observation to ensure that the things that are on the proposal are being facilitated or implemented. And they will work closely with our district data and accountability team, as well as the Office of Strategic Partnership and Fund Development, to ensure alignment between what was written or proposed in the grant and what is happening during our implementation process. They would also be responsible at the end of the grant to be able to provide us with a playbook or a book that can help us review or a document that can help us see a step-by-step guide of the implementation and what were lessons learned and things that we see that are working well or not, to be able to allow us to think about expansion of such process or implementation across other schools. Next slide, please. The schools for this particular grant that they will be assisting us in evaluate the implementation are MD Fox, Burr Middle School, and Buckley High School. And as I mentioned, we do have a system in place for them to have a bi-weekly tracking mechanism, not only with the Office of Strategic Partnerships, but with the data and accountability team. They are the ones that are helping us monitor how the trends and things that are being implemented and happening at not only the 3 schools, but the other schools. And they will continue to do site visits and surveys as we continue to operationalize this grant for the duration, which is 4 more years. Next slide. Okay. One piece that was not presented in the slide is the funding that we're bringing for review for you this evening is we're extending the contract. So we started as an annual renewal of the contract. Last year, we did the contract at the beginning of this school year, which we're bringing them to the board for revision now because the renewal of their calendar year contract is falling within our school year contract. The contract for this year would only be $30,695, but because the previous contract was done during this school year, it really brings them over that 50,000 threshold, which is why I need to bring it to the board for you guys to review and approve. And I'm open for any questions at this time. I do have Mr. Wes Yance from the University of Hartford with me here this afternoon, just in case there are any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for the information, Ms. Hooker, and thank you, Wes Yance, for joining us this evening. Are there any questions about this contract?
I did have a question about the funding, but that question was answered.
Great. All right. Well, again, thank you for your time, and we'll be reviewing this further and voting on approval at the February meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Finally, for contract review, or rather, finally, for items for the regular meeting, we're getting a first look at the proposed district school calendars for the next 2 years. Is this you as well, Ms. Hooker, or is there someone else talking about this?
At this time, that would be.
I'll take it.
Barney.
Thank you.
Oh, Dr. Roddy.
Yes. Thank you, Board Member Tatum. Thank you, Ms. Hooker. I'll just kickstart us in just letting you know that I am joined tonight by Chief of Schools, Corinne Barney. I'm sorry to introduce myself, Dr. Connie Ratley, Deputy Superintendent for Schools and Academics. I'm joined by Chief Corinne Barney, who serves as our Chief of Schools. And we're here tonight to launch our annual school calendar approval process. This is a comprehensive process. And as a result, we've incorporated 2 new approaches this year. If you'll proceed to the next slide, please. Thank you. One is creating a calendar committee. There are various stakeholder groups, obviously, that we want to hear from. So this year we did something different in establishing a calendar committee to pull some of those stakeholders at the table at the point that we're developing versions of calendars to bring forth to the board for recommendation. The second new approach is around recommending to the board a 2-year calendar. So not only recommending a calendar for this upcoming school year, 25-26, but also recommending a version for 26-27. This does not mean that there would not be an annual review, so we would reconvene that calendar committee next year, have that group come back to the table to review the upcoming calendar in the event that there needed to be any adjustments, but at least it would allow both internal and external teams, partners, and so forth to do some strategic planning with a longer runway. And so as the years progress, we would be asking for recommendation or approval from the board on calendars that are 2 years out rather than in the upcoming year. Tonight, we also are open, as we always are, to getting feedback from you all as we proceed through this process. Thank you. See, the next slide is fine. We just wanted to provide an overview of who sat at the table. Obviously, as I mentioned, Chief Barney, who facilitated each of the sessions. You can see that there were 3 sessions to the right side. And then as we go through several internal staff, including a parent, and I'm sorry, I'm noticing that her last name is not on the slide, Ms. Shenda Allen, but then also various department teams or leads, and some of our union leadership and representation as well. I will now turn it over to Chief Barney to give some insight or shed some insight in terms of a process and all of the activities that she lined up for the committee.
Thanks, Dr. Rattley. Evening. As Dr. Rattley lifted, we had a committee, as you can see, represented by the unions, parents, central office stakeholders, and we scheduled 3 sessions. The first session was really just a norming session and to get stakeholder voice. So really getting to know each other as a team. We also held the team in person, but also had a virtual option. So we were really a hybrid team, which allowed everyone to attend all of the sessions. During the norming session, we did an activity where all of the committee members had to see themselves within the different roles of people that would be impacted by the calendar. So the student voice, the parent voice, the central office voice, and then the community partner voice. So it was very interactive, chart paper around the room, and they had to talk about what is the tradition, what are we doing currently with the calendar, what is the preference for that stakeholder group, and then is there anything that is a constraint that binds us, whether it be an HFT, like the HFT contract, state and federal holidays. So that way they were charting it out, and we were collecting data and able to really look at it through a common lens. Then we went into session 2, where we took the activity from the first one. All the data was synthesized into a Google form so that everyone could really look at what did we see as requirements, what did we see as traditions, and what did we see as preferences. And then as a team, we had discussion and we ranked them. So what are the preferences that we really felt were highly important in the calendar? What are the traditions that we felt were highly important? And then what was required? That data was then all synthesized with recommendations for one of our committee members to then create the draft calendars for our 3rd session. So out of session 2, we ended up with 4 total calendars, 2 sets of 2 for us to look at based off of what the team had recommended. We then did a consensus protocol. So walking into the room and really naming that to make consensus is something that you can live with, right? You're not everyone's going to agree. You're not going to all get 100% of what you want, but what can you walk away with feeling comfortable with, and then that you feel comfortable sharing with your stakeholder groups and messaging. And so from those 4 and the consensus protocol that we went through, we were actually able to drill down and we had to create a hybrid. So there were things that people liked from one of the options and things that people liked from the other, but we were able to actually come to consensus with the options that we're going to show you this evening. And then the last step was crafting a survey that would go out to families, students, partners, and then staff. So all staff, and gather feedback to determine any other additional next steps. Next slide. So as I lifted with the first session, that we did have to take into account through all of them. Some of the considerations were that we have to legally be in school for 180 days, and we also legally need to be we need to have 900 hours of full day classes within the calendar. We also have to also had to take into account all the federal holidays and or special observances. We looked at all of the contractual requirements, especially with the updated teacher's contract. We wanted to ensure that it was a 2-year proposal. We wanted to look at feedback from the past around having snow days included within the calendar for makeup, as well as the required professional learning days. And then also, we wanted to ensure that Capital Prep and Great Path were a part of the process, and that we were considering their calendars and they were considering ours. Next slide. Sorry. So linked in the top is the 25-26 option and the 26-27 option. Some of the key highlights that we lifted, there are not very many differences between either. It's just the start date of school. This year is the latest day that Christmas will fall. So there is that longer holiday break, and then it's that shift to the new where everything kind of shortens. So when you look at the 26-27, you'll see that we actually return to school before Three Kings Day, and then are out for Three Kings Day because of the changeover in the calendar. And then the end date is different for both years, but we are still starting before Labor Day in both calendars. So there's 181 school days for students. This year, the calendar's options, and for the following year, for both years, the first day of school for students would be August 27th. The last day for staff would be June 17th. June 16th would be for students. There would be early release transition day for grades K, 6, and 9 on August 26th. However, there would be 3 full days of professional learning in August prior to the start of school, allowing for districted school-based professional learning, as well as classroom setup, and then any other contractual items that need to be completed. Schools are closed on all of the holidays that are listed. There would also be no professional learning on those days. So it would be closed for students and for staff. The extended winter break would happen in the 25-26 calendar due to the late fall of the holiday. Keeping the February long weekend and the spring recess aligned to most of the surrounding districts. So we did take into account when most other districts that our students and families come from, and also our staff and their families may live in, to ensure that our breaks were falling along with theirs. And then we also included a full professional learning day in March that can also be used as a built-in snow day. Next slide. So our next steps, we're continuing to gather the feedback from all of our stakeholders. We've had a pretty good turnout so far, and we're continuing to elicit feedback from family, student, staff, partners. A first reading will be at the February 18th regular board meeting. We will present on the Teaching and Learning Committee on February 26th with any additional feedback that we've gathered, and then the board final approval would be 3/18, which would then allow us to share the adopted calendar for the next 2 years to neighboring towns and districts. And then the next step is we are leveraging the calendar committee to discuss the bell schedule, which would be the start and end times due to the change with the reduction of 30 minutes for next year. I think that's the last slide.
Thank you very much for your work convening that committee and getting as many people at the table as you could for developing this. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Barney at this time? Go for it, Ms. Hockenall.
Thanks, Mr. Tatum. Thanks, Ms. Barney. That was a great presentation. Question for you, and sorry again if I missed it. Did you talk about half days, and are those half days on the calendar yet? And do we have half days before like the major holiday breaks?
So Yes, that is one of the considerations. So all of the professional learning days, with the exception of one in October, and then the 4 days in August, are full day professional learning. We did include the half day before Thanksgiving break, and then also the half day before Christmas Eve.
Thanks. So are there still like the other like half day Wednesdays in there, or are those are not happening?
No, so
Okay.
yep, we were trying that was the consensus the team came to based
Yes.
off of that. But that was one of the ones that when Dr. Ratley and I were having conversations, that was actually where a lot of our discourse as a team came from, because it was split like 50-50 on keeping half days, going full day. And so that was one of the questions as well, is that we asked the stakeholder groups was how they felt about the professional learning, like the full days or the half days.
I appreciate that. As a parent who had one kid that could drive and one kid that couldn't drive, it's not a big deal when they can drive, but it is absolutely awful when they can't. So I appreciate the consideration there. Thank you.
How does that work, just picking up on that? Because I know in the new teacher's contract, there are like additional days devoted to professional learning. But if I'm remembering correctly, the half day professional learning time was not like that was not part of the sort of contractual professional learning time. That was more so at the discretion of the district to provide that professional learning time. So would in the new model, and I can look at the details sometime soon, like would there be additional professional learning time for staff in addition to those contractual days, kind of to if it's not happening on half days, early release days, are there more professional learning days built in through the year?
There
Or-
are 10 and a half, there's 10 and a half total professional development days built in. Contractually, with the new contract, they're required 9. However, because we went with the full day model, we did not add the additional half days in, because we had a full day professional learning that students are out, and now we can do multiple sessions. We could get creative. We haven't even gone there yet, but like the team just was thinking, like when you go full day, you could do potentially half day district, half day school. Like there's just a lot more you can do with a full day versus the half day. So we do meet the contractual requirements, and we do have a day and a half extra.
Okay. But I guess if you were just looking at hours, this means that there's less professional learning time in these new proposals than there has been because of shifting away from those regular half days. Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? All right, we will look forward to more opportunity to review and provide feedback and hear from folks about their perspectives on this. So thank you for sharing the information and for, like I said, for convening the committee. That sounds like a great process to follow for developing these calendars. So thank you. All right, that concludes our discussion of items for the regular meeting coming up on February 18th. We will now transition into the reports section of the meeting. So back over to you, Ms. Hooker, I believe.
For this particular portion of the reporting, I am actually going to include Mr. Alejandro Martinez to do the presentation of our School Governance Council monthly update.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alejandro Martinez. I am the Family Outreach and Engagement Manager for the district, and I'll give you all a full report. Christina, if you could move over to the slides. So just to give you a quick overview, at this particular moment, we have 57.9% of our 30 of our schools that currently have a full SGC. 42% have 9 to 13 members. As you can clearly see from the last reporting that we did, all of our schools are no longer pending elections, are with 0 members, or currently between 1 or 8 members, which is a great shift. We have gone from 15 schools from full membership to 22. We've gone from 212 parents to 244, and this is all from the last reporting done in December. Teacher membership has increased from 157 to 174, and community partners have increased from 64 to 68, which is a great thing. That means that FCSSPs, administrators, and in collaboration with myself and our office are assisting school leadership and FCSSPs to make sure that we have full seating SGCs, especially knowing that budget season is coming up. With that being said, huge shout out to several schools that did a quick and amazing shift to make sure that they were fully seated. So we have Betances Early Lab, Burr School, Parkville, Breakthrough South, MD Fox, Renzulli, and Buckley High Schools. Those schools had some gains in their SGCs during the month of December. So I wanted to give them a shout out. Any questions regarding SGC at this particular moment? And Christina has the board members, Christina has the full report with school details as far as how many teachers are in each SGC, how many parents, and how many CBOs for each particular school. So the breakdown, there's a report with that particular breakdown that Christina has shared with all the board members. So even after tonight, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out.
Yes, and Christina is noting that the full report is also available to the community in board docs. So I believe that's true for all of the reports that will be discussed this evening. Ms. Hooker, you have a hand raised?
Yes, not a question, but I would also like to add on the shout out that the community-based organizations that are contracted or providing services at the schools did also had as part of their contract to support and ensure that we would have parental membership increase as part of the SGC. So I would like to also add that as part of the shout out to show the success that we're noticing on engagement of parents to be a part of this process.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Martinez, for your work and supporting these SGCs. It's a crucial role to play in the system, as you noted, especially getting ready for budget season. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And then I will also be presenting on Title I. So Christina, if you could go on. So Title I report looks a little bit different this particular board meeting. Just want to share with everyone, usually we provide a full detailed report of our expenditures per school and as a district in regards to Title I parental engagement event. As of mid-December Christmas break, there is a new personnel shift at the state level. So they are currently completing a audit in regards to Title I funds. That is not just for us as a district, that is across the board due to the fact that there has been a shift in personnel at the state level, right? So that means making sure that codings are done correctly, making sure that allocations are done correctly. As of right now, after speaking to Ms. Jamir Soto Santana, which is our Director of Finance, of Financial Planning and Grants, we have gone through 2 out of the 3 audits. We should have a final audit, finalized numbers by the middle of next week. Once those numbers are solidified, I'll be more than happy to share the Title I report with Christina so that she can share it with the board members, with you all. Any questions? Okay, thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you. And now on to the Welcome Center report.
Thank you. So our final report for today is the Welcome Center report, and I would like to just take this opportunity to say I will be the one reporting this month, but transitioning the report moving forward, starting next month, will be Ms. Flor de Hoyos, who is also joining us this evening, who is our director of the Welcome Center. So we're using today's meeting for her to get acclimated on how the reports flow during our FCE board committee. Next slide, please. So part of our midpoint, we wanted to showcase where we are in terms of the volume or number of intakes that the Welcome Center has conducted so far. So from July until now, the Welcome Center team has conducted a total of 3,287 intakes, and this report is until the month of December, and you're able to see the breakdown by month. Next slide, please. From the number of intakes that you just saw in the month of December compared to the previous year, December, we did have a slight increase of 21 intakes that were conducted, as you can see in the bar between the blue colors and the orange color. From those intakes, the top 3 areas where the Welcome Center provided a variety of services were basic need assistance for families, support to our displaced families, as well as information and support around transportation inquiries. The top 3 schools that we receive either intakes were conducted for in either complaint, concerns, or request from the elementary level was Sand, Burns, and West Middle. From the middle school standpoint, it was MLK, Burr, and McDonough. And from our high schools, our comprehensive high school, it was Weaver, Hartford High, and Buckley. A full report was provided also to our board members where you are able to see the breakdown by the type of inquiries that came in, not only the top 3, but all of the inquiries that came in to comprise the 422 that were conducted during the month of December. And at this time, I will open for any questions that you may have from our Welcome Center report.
As a reminder, the full report was sent out to board members at the beginning of the week and is also available in board docs. And I'm also open to feedback about process for that, but that seemed to be the feedback that I'd gotten from other board members was that it'd be helpful to have that full report to review further in advance of these meetings. Go ahead, Ms. Hagenal.
Thanks, Mr. Tatum. I was just curious, what are the hours of the Welcome Center? And just could you give like a 1-minute overview, like as a reminder to myself and the viewing community on the Welcome Center?
Absolutely. So the Welcome Center is 5 days a week. On paper is an 8 to 4:30 operations. And I say on paper because when we get families coming into the door at right before, we do not say that we're closing. So we do have members of the Welcome Center that sometimes work past that time in many cases. So that's the reason why I'm saying on paper, but the Welcome Center is available 5 days a week. Today is an example of a day that the Welcome Center was open, even though it was a snow day, and we did have families that made it in to our Welcome Center for services. And we were open regular hours for today as a snow day. That gives an example of how that works.
Are there any other questions from board members on the Welcome Center report?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Right, I am set as well. So I would like to extend a welcome to Flor Doyos. Welcome to the district, and look forward to hearing more from you in your new role.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, unless I'm mistaken, that concludes the reports and the agenda items for this evening. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, then I hereby call this meeting adjourned and wish all of you a great evening. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time.